Okay, Shabbat Shalom, Leftsumers. You can put me on to talk to the Zoomers whenever. Okay. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom, Zoomers. It's very nice to see you. This is the Shabbat. We finally have an in-person crowd, and we brought them for dinner before services. And guess what? We don't have absolute control over when they're finishing, but they're coming right now, so we're going to start services in one more second. Our Songs of Freedom Shabbat, which we believe is going to be very, very nice to share. So it's good to see all your faces popping up in our screen. Here we go.
Hello? There we go.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Can you hear me well? Eden? I want him to come. I want him to come 1 second. I need more. Shabbat Shalom. So if you don't do that. Sit here. You are too far. Come here. Like you are reading the setup wrongly, absolutely wrongly. Like, no, come here, everybody. So the fact that we put a circle is to sit in a circle. It's like we are not showing anything. Like we are just doing service together. We are davening Friday night. Get closer. The fourth line is an irrelevant line. Gilad, thank you for being in the first line. Come to Shannon.
Come sing.
Thank you for being in the first line.
You won't be might. You know what, that's
So,
fair.
do you think you can see it
come
from here,
here.
Anna? Come on.
You're very right. Come here.
I would recommend for people to take Sidurim. Sidurim is that blue book we have, prayer book.
Are you? That's what counts.
Right together. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. If you have an instrument and you want to play, if you have a drum, or a guitar, or ukulele, Eden, in order to start the service, I can't hear Andy, and that makes it very problematic for us to do a service together. I need to hear him a little bit. So this is the melody of Be'isheamda. We'll talk about Be'isheamda later, but the melody is quite simple. And it goes, if you want to tap a little bit. Pam pa dai 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 Now, yes, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You can say Shabbat Shalom out loud.
Shabbat Shalom.
It's very nice to see everyone. It is a joy to welcome Shabbat and to start Shabbat together. So we call this Shabbat, which is the last, for some of us is the conclusion of Passover, and for some of us is the last day of Passover. No. I tell you when, in one more minute. It's okay. We are together. He's with me.
We rehearsed and everything.
He is with me. He will rehearse. We're fine. So we invite all of you to use instruments today. If you have an instrument, you can use an instrument. If your instrument is your voice, we invite you to sing. And this is not exactly a family service, so we are not going to be focusing on the text that we usually use for family services. It's, of course, a service that is open to families. But the texts that we are going to be using during this service are texts that somehow connect us to and with freedom narratives. The story of the Exodus, the story of the redemption of the Jewish people is not only for the sake of remembering what happened 3,000 years ago to our people. It's about having the ability to use that memory in order to interpret the world that surrounds us, and also to see our own journeys from that perspective. So with these songs of Freedom Shabbat, we will start singing together and thinking of one of the most important phrases we read in the Haggadah. We say, בכל דור ודור, חייב אדם לראות את עצמו כאילו הוא יצא ממצרים. In every generation, every person of the people of Israel should see himself, herself, themselves as if they themselves came out from the land of Egypt.
Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. I'm walking and talking with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
We would like to invite Cantor Shannon to lead us in lighting the Shabbos candles. You can find the blessing on page 122.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu
להדליק נר להדליק נר של שבת. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
When your children ask you in time to come, what is the meaning of the testimonies and the statutes and the rules that the Lord our God has commanded you? Then you shall say to your children, we were Pharaoh's slaves in Egypt, and God brought us out of Egypt with a mighty hand. And God showed us signs and wonders, great and grievous, against Egypt and against Pharaoh and all his household, before our eyes. And he brought us out from there, that he might bring us in and give us the land that he swore to give to our fathers. And God commanded us to do all these statutes, to fear the Yah, the source of all being, our God, for our good always, that he might preserve us alive as we are this day. And it will be tzedakah, righteousness for us, if we are careful to do all this commandment before the Lord our God, as he has commanded us.
עבדים
היינו, היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין, עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין, עבדים היינו, היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין, עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, עבדים היינו, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין, אתה בני חורין, בני חורין.
We were 60s rebels. The authors of injustice and oppression in America are pharaohs. We name the pharaohs in Congress who multiply the weapons. We name the pharaohs who condemn black babies to die at twice the rate of whites. We name the pharaohs who poison the land and water. In America, we Jews have been both coerced and cajoled into abandoning the prophetic legacy. The American lifestyle tries to remake us in one dimension: bureaucratic, programmed, technological, flat. But we demand the survival of Judaism, not merely of a brood of suburban bar mitzvah boys and girls.
This is Rabbi Arthur Basco. And is this from which Agada?
A night.
We women are still slaves to our body image, guilt eating into our bodies and souls, to our superwoman ideals that scatter our energies everywhere, to a selective memory of history that erases our foremothers, to recalcitrant husbands who imprison us in dead marriages, to our desire to be considered good little girls, to society's concept of success, competitive, autonomous, and lonely, to our misconception that feminist is just for and about women, that it denies deep and healthy relationships with the men in our lives.
Jews have seen the key to Jewish and universal liberation in many modern movements and often wrote their own ideological adaptations of the Haggadah. Did these movements contribute to freedom or create new forms of enslavement? How would we write our own adoption today?
These pieces are taken from an Agada that brings them together. It's called A Different Night. And I think a very powerful thing about the story of Pesach and the story of the Exodus is that it has served to represent stories of oppression. The story of the Exodus becomes real when somehow different people in different times, Beholder Vador, in every generation, with a variety of identities, can somehow recognize and relate the story of their own oppression in the moment in which they live with the story of the Exodus. And this is also true for the civic rights movement in the United States.
Israel was in Egypt land, let my people go. Let my people go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, Pharaoh, let my people go. So Moses went to Egypt land, let my people go. He told the Pharaoh what to do. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt and Pharaoh, let my people go. The spoke the Lord, but Moses said, let my people go. If not, I'll smite your firstborn head. Let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, Pharaoh, let my people go. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land, Pharaoh, let my people go.
Look at Fletcher Lowell, Charles Rowland, Judy Lee. Are they special and gifted and divine? No more than you are, no more than I am. The only difference, the very only one, is that they have begun to understand what they really are and have begun to practice it.
This is from Jonathan Livingston Segal, right? I don't know if it's about the ability and the possibility to realize what we are, who we are, and who we want to be. The Kabbalat Shabbat in its structure has 7 psalms in front of 7 days of the week. The 6th psalm is Morle David, which we are not going to sing today. We are going to replace with a different song. Reminds us of the creation of humanity, reminds us of the gift of our own life. And in this context, this Freedom Shabbat, these songs of Freedom Shabbat, we think about the ability to define ourselves and to decide who we want to be.
Well, if you want to sing out, sing out. And if you want to be free, be free. 'Cause there's a million things to be, you know that there are. And if you want to live high, live high. And if you want to live low, live low. 'Cause there's a million ways that there are. You can do what you want. The opportunity's on. And if you find a new way, you can do it today. You can make it all true. And you can make it undo. You see, it's easy. You only need to know. Well, if you want to say yes, say yes. And if you want to say no, say no. 'Cause there's a million ways to go. You know that there are. And if you want to be me, be me. And if you want to be you, be you. 'Cause there's a million things to do. You know that there are. You can do what you want. The opportunity's on. And if you find a new way, you can do it today. You can make it all true. And you can make it undo. You see, it's easy. You only need to know. Well, if you want to sing out, sing out. And if you want to be free, be free. 'Cause there's a million things to be. You know that there are, you know that there are, you know that there are. You know that there are.
As we get closer to the center of our Kabbalat Shabbat, I invite you to open your prayer books on page 138, if you have a prayer book. Well, you have it, you know everything because you have the screen sharing behind me. So we hope we hope you know this melody. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקב אליי. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקב אליי.
שמור ושחור בדיבור אחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד, השמיענו אל המיוחד. אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם תפארת ולי תהילה.
היי לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקב אליי. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקב אליי. לקראת שבת לכו ונלחקי עם מקור הברכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוך, סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה, סוף מעשה ומחשבה תחילה. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקב אליי. לך דודי לקראת קלה פני שבת נקב אליי. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, כי באורך קומי אורי. אורי, אורי, שתדברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. לך תבושי, ולא תקלמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי, מה תשתוכחי ומה תהמי, באח יחסו אני ימי, ונבנתה התהלתי לה, ונבנתה התהלתי לה, לך דורי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דורי לקראת כלה,
בני שבת נקבלה. בואי ושלום עצרת בעלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה, גם בשמחה ובצהלה. תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי כלה, בואי כלה,
לך דורי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דורי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, הלילה זה, הלילה זה, כולה השערים. You may be seated. And now we're going to take a moment to say good Shabbos to everyone. Remember that when we are not playing, we are not playing. Say Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom,
There's so many
everyone.
papers in this. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
And
Ooh, it lights up.
so we take a moment also to acknowledge our Zoomers. We see your faces. It is a real joy to see your faces. So you need to turn around today to see the Zoomers. So you might want to turn around and say good Shabbos to the Zoomers. It is I was reminded to the Zoomers that when you look at the circle, they're kind of a part of our seating lines here. And it makes that's a very powerful instrument. So we're going to use it when we are playing. Now we are going to play a very quiet song, so you might want to do it like as a little drum. There's a poem that you can find in our Sidur on page 145 that was written by Leah Goldberg, an Israeli poet, and speaks about the ability to find freedom in our routines, the opportunity to experience wonder in our lives as an expression of freedom. And we are going to go with this poem all the way to Baruch. So at some point I will ask you to please rise. Don't do it yet. And we are going to go with this same melody to Baruch. It's a very easy melody. So you might be able to learn it as we are singing it. למדני אלוהי ברך והתפלל, על סוד לקמל, על נוגה פרי בשל, על החירות הסוד לראות, לחוש לנשום, לדעת לייחל, להיכשל. Again. למדני אלוהי ברך והתפלל, על סודה לקבל, על נוגה פרי בשל, על החירות הסוד לראות, לחוש לנשום, לדעת לייחל, להיכשל. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש זמנך עם בוקר ועם ליל, לבל יהיה יומי היום כתמול שלשום. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש זמנך עם בוקר ועם ליל, לבל יהיה יומי היום הרגל. למדני אלוהי ברך והתפלל, על סודה לקבל, על נוגע פרי בשל, על אחרים לעשות לראות, לחוש לנשום, לדעת לייחל, להיכשל. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש חיים בוקר והלל, לבד יהיה יומי היום, כגדול שלשום. למד את שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש חיים בוקר והלל, לבד יהיה יומי היום. הרגל, please rise for ברכו. ברכו את אדוני המבורך, ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. יש שפתותיי ברכה ושיר הלל, והתחדש חיים בוקר והלל, לבעל יהיה יומי היום. הרגל, you may be seated. When we get closer to the reading of the Shema in services, we sing the words of Abbat Olam. And when we sing the words of Abbat Olam, the blessing for love, we think of loving legacies that we have in our lives. One of the texts that we read in the Agadah, the Ishamda, reminds us of the constant presence of Torah in our lives and the loving legacies that somehow, in some times, they come to redeem our souls and our minds from very oppressive situations. So we invite you to sing this text from the Agadah today in the context of the blessing of Ahava, of love, before the Shema.
והיא שעמדה לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו.
והיא שעמדה
לאבותינו, והיא שעמדה לאבותינו ולנו, שלא אחד בלבד עמד עלינו לכלותנו, עמד עלינו לכלותנו. והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם. והקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו
הקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם. הקדוש ברוך הוא מצילנו, מצילנו מידם. Dear God, never remove your love from us. לבדך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. I want you to close your eyes. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. 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 We're on page 150 for the reading after the Shema, ואהבת.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם נאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. אדוני אלוהיכם, אמת. The handheld microphones need to be on.
Redemption by Mark
Because it's a
Nazim.
song about redemption, we actually want you to scream it out. No. We're happy for you to use the microphone.
The Israelites walked into the Red Sea 1 foot at a time. What were they thinking about as the water rose up their legs, chilling their hearts, advancing toward their open mouths? We continue to walk here now, 1 foot at a time, on our better days forward, alone. I cannot reach the far shore without drowning. Somehow, I don't go under. The person to my right holds me up. Something I cannot see holds him up. Blessed is the source of help, so often unexpected. I step forward, the sea is vast.
On page 158.
Nora
אמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב, וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. ברוך אתה אדוני, גאל ישראל.
Amen.
And as we think of our redemption as something that happened to all of us together, right? It's a collective redemption that is kept in our collective memory. We also think about our ability to create shelters for ourselves and for those that are in need of redemption. I came across the new slogan of HIAS, the organization that helped for many, many years Jewish refugees. Symbolically, as a side note, Abraham Infield, this modern Jewish thinker, says that the most common adjective that the Jewish people had for the length of the 20th century was refugee. We were refugees. Wherever we were escaping from one place to the other until we had the privilege to create a Jewish state. And we are very lucky, we are very fortunate to live in the United States and to have freedom and to be who we are. So this organization, HIAS, was saying, we used to help refugees because they were Jewish. Now we help refugees because we are Jewish. And so with that idea, with this commitment to create shelters of peace, shelters of protection, we turn our Sidurim to page 160.
Sometimes I lay under the moon and thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will play one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'avidenu shamrenu lechaim. Ashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'avidenu shamrenu lechaim. Ofros aleinu.
Sukkot
Shlomecha,
1, 2, 3, and
ותמננו בעצה, טוב מלפניך. All my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars, and our children will live one day, one day, one day. One day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day, one day.
ברוך אתה אדוני, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל כל holy city, the city of Jerusalem. So as we were thinking of this Shabbat filled with songs of freedom, don't go to the next slide yet. Don't go. I want to intro it. Too late. Okay, so just stay there. Just hold it, hold it. Well, I hope to find. Anyway, when we're thinking about this Shabbat, songs of freedom, we couldn't avoid but thinking about Ukraine, thinking about what's happening right now in Europe, the tragedies that our world is seeing. Oppression right now is not a theory or an aesthetic idea, it's happening. And it came to my mind that many times before before Tfilat Amidah, for the space for personal prayer, particularly in Israel, we sing Lu Yehi, which is a song about, may all our wishes become true. And before we go into Tfilat Amidah, I want to appeal to wishful thinking. And this song from the 90s came to our minds. I think many of you know it. We're going to add the Hasidic part they sing, which is the whistling. That sounds like a Hasidic nigun to me. Let's do it again.
Down to Gorky Park, listening to the wind of change. An August summer night, soldiers passing by, listening to the wind of change. Closing in. Did you ever think that we could be so close, like brothers? The future's in the air, can feel it everywhere, blowing with the wind of change. The magic of the moment on a glory night, where the children of tomorrow dream away in the wind of change.
Take me to the magic of the moment on a glory night, where the children of tomorrow dream away.
Walking down the street, distant memories are buried in the past forever. I follow the most far down to Gorky Park, listening to the wind of change. Take me to the magic of the moment on a glory night, like a storm wind that will ring the freedom bell. For peace of mind, let your balalaika sing what my guitar wants to say. Take me to the magic of the moment on a glory night, where the children of tomorrow share their dreams with you and me. Take me to
The magic of the moment
on a glory night, where the children of tomorrow dream away with the wind of change. Take me to the magic of the moment on a glory night, where the children of tomorrow share their dreams with you and me.
Please rise for Tfilat Amidah. On page 164. Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach, Ufi Agitehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. We continue in silence. אתה גיבור לעולם העולם, חמתי מתי הרב להושיעך. שאתה קידשת יום השביעי, ותפלתם בפה תקבל ביתי לרצון תמיד. שלום רב על ישראל, המחת עשים לעולם.
One day, a few days after the liberation, I walked through the country past flowering meadows for miles and miles. Toward the market town near the camp, larks rose to the sky, and I could hear their joyous song. There was no one to be seen for miles around. There was nothing but the wide earth and sky and the lark's jubilation and the freedom of space. I stopped, looked around, and up to the sky, and then I went down on my knees. At that moment, there was very little I knew of myself or of the world. I had but one sentence in mind, always the same. I called to the Lord from my narrow prison, and he answered me in freedom, in the freedom of space. How long I knelt there and repeated the sentence memory can no longer be recalled. But I know that on that day, in that hour, my new life started. Step for step, I progressed until I again became a human being.
קשת צר מאוד, כל העולם קשת צר, כל העולם כולו קשת צר מאוד, כל העולם קשת, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד, כל העולם כולו קשת צר מאוד, כל העולם קשת צר מאוד, כל העולם כולו קשת צר מאוד, כל העולם קשת,
והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל, לא לפחד, והעיקר, לא לפחד כלל,
לא לפחד,
כל העולם
כולו קשת צר מאוד, כל העולם קשת צר מאוד.
We have one more prayer to Filat Amidah as we pray for expansion, as we pray to find our way. We also pray for those that are in need of healing. We take a moment to acknowledge those that are dealing with illness in their bodies, illness in their souls, and of course those that are dealing with addictions. We pray for our recovery. So if there is a name that you would like to share in this Erev Shabbat, we invite you to do so as we go around the room. And the names count whether you say them out loud or you bring them up in your hearts. Bring them.
God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change. God grant me the courage to change the things I can. And God grant me the wisdom to know the difference. El Nadefan Allah, El Nadefan Allah, El Nadefan Allah, El Nadefan Allah. Misha berach avotenu, hu yerapeh et hacholim. מקור שכינה לאמותינו, היא תמצא מזון לסובבים. רפואת הנפש והגוף, רפואה שלמה.
El Nadefan Allah, El Nadefan Allah, El Nadefan Allah,
נאחל רפואה שלמה והחלמה מהירה, a complete and a fast recovery. And let us say,
Amen.
I was wondering if I should free you from Edvar Torah. I was hoping you would say, no.
Freedom
Well-
is the ability to hear the
Okay,
Torah.
good, that's it. For so many years, we were prevented from studying Torah, so here we are, free and studying Torah. So I want to think with you for Pesach for a few moments. Now, you might say, why do you really want to talk about Pesach, right? We are right at the end, like, what's last to talk about Pesach? Why shall we? I think we need to talk about Pesach. And I hope that I will make a good case for us to keep thinking about the holiday. I want to take you to 3 different places. The first one is a moment in my childhood, a moment that I witnessed several times. The second one is the ancient Greece. And the third one is no other than the Agada, the book that we read during Passover. Hans and Rudy, 2 very good friends sitting at the same table. Hans is Rabbi Hans Harf, a fantastic thinker. And for those that have shared studying with me, I always tell the story that Rabbi Harf, or as we call him, Grandpa, the Opa, will take a moment at some point in the Seder, in a random place in Dagada. Maybe if there was a specific place in Dagada, I didn't get it, but he will remove his watch and say, I will share a few words. He had a book that he was reading always, every year a different one, and say, I want to share a few thoughts about this book. Puff. And then he started speaking. And at some point, his childhood friend, Rudy, and it was quite random. We're fine with Maya crying. I apologize,
We
Maya.
love Maya crying.
I
Thank
apologize,
you.
Maya, for making you cry. It gets better, Maya. So at some point, it didn't matter, right, like what he was talking about. At some point during the speech, Rudy would pound in the table, would literally punch the table, and say, no, you're wrong. And they would go into an argument like God knows what that was about. They had a very heavy German accent. It was already difficult to understand them, and then like God knows, right? And they had these very maybe interesting conversations, and they were very visceral. At some point, Rabbi Harf's daughter, Ruthie, would say, enough. We need to eat. And they would stop, and we would have the meal. And then they would sing. We used to sing all the Pesach songs, but by the moment of Haggadah, these 2 guys that were fighting with each other, almost killing each other, like 15 minutes earlier, they would sing together like children. Fighting viscerally, arguing viscerally, and from there, singing like children. Now let's go to Greece. Have you heard about Diogenes? Diogenes?
Diogenes?
Diogenes?
Diogenes.
Diogenes. How do you pronounce it? Diogenes? Is there any other way to pronounce it? It's already complicated.
Diogenes?
That's exactly how you pronounce it, I think. For a change, I didn't get it wrong. So in Spanish, it's Diogenes, okay, or something like that. I don't even know. So Diogenes was the father of philosophical cynicism. And he had a very difficult attitude toward the status quo of the society in Greece, and he was very critical of that. And for that reason, he was pretty much expelled from his community, and he needed to live in Athens. People say that he used to walk with a lantern during daytime, saying that he was looking for an honest man because he couldn't see anyone. So it was part of his criticism. And there are two stories that are attributed to him that I wanted to share with you. The first one is about 2 coins. It is said that he used to sleep in stairways of households because he had no place to live. He was very poor, he was very smart, he was a bit lonely and a bit ignored. So one day he was sitting at the stairway of a house when the house owner came back and said to him, Diogenes, I had a great day at work, I made a lot of money, so I want to give you these 2 coins of gold. Diogenes was surprised and asked him, did you work hard for them? And he said, indeed. Do you have more of them? And he said, yes, I do. Will you work tomorrow in order to get more of those that you are given to me? And the man responded, yes. And so Diogenes said, apparently, you need them more than I do, so you keep them. And he didn't take them. This idea of having enough. I don't need this. I have enough. You are working for this. You are devoting your entire life to this. That's your choice. That's not my choice. That's one thing. The other story about Diogenes is that once again, one day he was sitting at the stairway at the stairs, the entryway to a house, and an officer of the government who was apparently a family member of his saw him eating lentils. Eating lentils apparently was a symbol of poverty. If you were eating lentils, it was because you apparently didn't have any money to eat something else. So this officer looked at him and said, Diogenes, if you were a bit more condescending, more willing to work with the system, you wouldn't need to eat lentils. Diogenes thought for a moment and said, if you were willing to eat a bit more lentils, you wouldn't need to be so submissive. And that's the end of the second story of Diogenes. Now, an interesting thing about Pesach, and I just mentioned this for a moment, is this idea of understanding that what we have might be enough to start the story of redemption. We sing Dayenu at the end of the Magid. Now, let's go to the Haggadah. There are 2 very interesting things in the Haggadah that I want to explore with you for a moment. One is, around the beginning of the Magid, of the storytelling section, the 4 questions, Ma nishtana, right? Why do we ask? We ask because we want to tell the story. I think that we ask because we want to question narratives. We want to question the stories that we tell to ourselves. We have immediate answers for all our actions in the world. We know why we do what we do. We know why we are sitting in the place we are sitting. We know why we have this, why we do that. And one of the important ideas that Pesach brings to us is the idea of asking questions. Now, we adults, we don't do so good with questions. We don't do so well with questions. So we try to ignore the questions that we are asking ourselves. And Pesach says, no. This is time for you to ask deep questions about the stories of the things that are happening around you in the world, which is always a topic, but also the stories that you are telling to yourself. Your life experience. It's time for you to ask questions about your life experience, to ask as children do. We adults, we don't ask questions. Children are supposed to ask the questions in the Seder. That might be a reminder for us that we also can ask questions and have visceral arguments with the stories that we are telling. Now, at the end of the Magid, of the narrative of the story, there is this moment, going back to the story of Diogenes, of I have enough. We say, Dayenu, I have enough. And you might say, well, that's the end, right? You say, I have enough. Thank you very much. It was very tasty. Time for me to leave. Next holiday. Next thing. You're done. So I want to argue with that idea. With the idea that Dayenu is the end of the narrative, the end of the Magid, is by the end of the Magid, and it's because we are moving into something else. In the Birkat Hamazon, in the blessing that we say after meals, we say, Be'achalta besabata. And you ate and you were satisfied. So when you ate and you were satisfied, then you can say the blessing. You can bless. Now, you wouldn't say that we eat for the sake of going to sleep. Right? I know it sounds weird what I'm saying, but I'll explain myself in a moment. You wouldn't say that eating is an end in life. Eating is means to an end. When you eat, you are trying, ideally, to gain energies to go and do something. Now, you need to recognize that you have enough energy, that you have enough gifts, that you have enough capital in order to undertake a journey. You need to realize that you have a support net, that you are driven by love, that you have an idea that you want to pursue, that you have values, that you have some inspiration. When we sing Dayenu, is that. What we are saying is that we have enough. Not in order to conclude the meal and to say we're done. In order to start doing the work that Pesach is inviting us to do, which ultimately is the work of having visceral conversations with our own narratives, to asking ourselves if we are free, to seeing ourselves as we ourselves came out from the land of Egypt, and to try to recognize what's Mitzrayim, what is making our world narrow today. I want to go back to Hans and Rudy, to these two children. They weren't children. They were always old. Okay, I don't know. I was who is winning? I was probably, 5, 6 years old, and I remember them very old. And I was probably, I think my last Seder with them was when I was 20, 21 years old. And they were really old then too. They were always old. and they did. And I remember the last Seder I spent with them. We didn't do it in Ruth's house because you need to climb up, I think it was 3 levels, 3 floors to get to her house. It was a big house, so we had big Sedarim there. So we did it in Rudy's house. He had an elevator. So the Seder was exactly the same. At some point, in a random moment during Rabbi Har's speech, he got offended by something. He pounded on the table, and they started to argue. At some point, Ruth said, enough is enough. That, yeah, we need to move into something else. We moved into something else. We ate. And they sang like children. And I think that this idea of seeing ourselves as children is about reclaiming the ability to experience wonder, to experience amazement, to ask questions, and to believe that the stories that we want to tell about ourselves, they're possible, that we can make it. In some place in our lives, we sometimes disconnect from that belief. And Pesach reminds us that impossible stories, they can be possible when they are driven by visceral needs, when they are driven by passion, when they are driven by our willingness to ask questions and to fight important fights. And then, when we are ready to go and play once again like children, we have forgotten how to play. And you cannot be free. We cannot be free if we do not reclaim our ability to play. So I want to wish to all of you a playful year. By this time, we start one of the countings in the Jewish calendar. And I want to invite all of us to once again play. Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue our service with Be'ashe Bota Lebabecha on page 588. We remind ourselves that all the ways of return, they all start from within our hearts. Be'ashe Bota
והשבותה
אל לבביך
אל לבביך
כי אדוני
כי אדוני
האלוהים
הוא האלוהים
והשבותה
והשבותה
אל לבביך
אל לבביך
כי אדוני
כי אדוני
הוא האלוהים
הוא האלוהים נאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. We have a more complicated lineup today,
Haven't noticed.
and it fell. Give me 1 second. So,
Kaddish.
we'll take a moment now for Sfirat HaOmer. We'll change it in 1 second.
Oh, okay.
We're going to go to Sfirat HaOmer first. The counting of the Omer is on page 500.
I'm close. It is on
Have-
page.
I'm sure it's in 500 something, Gabi.
Oh, I'm not in.
I think it's 580 something. And of course, I didn't check it before.
Okay, neither of us did.
Okay,
Oh.
if you find the Sfirat HaOmer,
570.
570,
570.
thank you. We were close. So 570, how many days have we counted of the Omer? Say seven.
7.
7. Today we count the 7th day, which is
What?
the week Say week.
1 week.
How do you say week in Hebrew? Shavua.
Shavua.
So we are on page 570 because we haven't counted the Omer publicly yet. I'm going to do it in representation of the congregation, and you can join me. It goes like this. Ineni mukhanum zuman, Ineni mukhanum zuman, Ineni mukhanum zuman, lekayem et mitzvat aseh. Ineni mukhanum zuman, Ineni mukhanum zuman, Ineni mukhanum zuman, לקיים מצוות עשה, כמו שכתוב בתורה, הנני מוכן ומזומן, כמו שכתוב בתורה, הנני מוכן ומזומן, הנני מוכן ומזומן, לקיים את מצוות עשה של תפילת העומר, וברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו בציוונו, על תפילת העומר, היום, יום השביעי שם, שבוע אחד, באפס ימים של התפילת העומר. Today is the 7th day, which is
1 week.
the first week, 1 week of תפילת העומר. And for how many days we are going to count תפילת העומר? 49, the 51, which we don't count anymore, is Shavuot, which we are going to be celebrating here at TBT. We take a moment also now to acknowledge mourners among our community. We invite those that are thinking of their beloved ones, whether you are in the cycle of the first week of mourning, Shiva, the cycle of the first month of mourning, Shloshim, and of the first year of mourning. We invite you to please rise. And we also acknowledge those that have a yortzeit this week, the anniversary of someone's passing by this time of the year in years past, to please rise. And of course, if you are connecting with us through Zoom, we invite you to share the names of your beloved ones, and we will be able to read them out loud. Let's start by... May that memory be a blessing. And we have in Zoom any names to be shared?
First year of mourning, Randy Sostock, Normand Dunkett, and Julio Mendez, Victoria Paz, Ventura Tom, and I think that's it.
Now you can support our fellows who are standing or sitting, joining us with your voices or your hearts on page 598 for mourners Kadesh, Kaddish, Avelim. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה.
Amen.
בעלמה דברה חילותה, וימליך מלכותה, בחייכון וביומכון, ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה ובזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן.
אמן.
יהא שמי רבה מברך לעולם ולעולמי
יתברך.
יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי תקודשה.
בריחו.
לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירם בעלמה, אמרו אמן. יש למרבה מן שמיה, בחיים טובים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. May the memories of your dear ones be always a blessing. יהיה זכרם ברוך. You may be seated. We'll do Kiddush. We have a cup of Kiddush here. I know that some of you have done Kiddush already because there was a meal activity. But for those that haven't done Kiddush, we'll do Kiddush. ויחול את הארץ בכל צבאם, ויחי אלוהים ביום השביעי מלאכתו אשר עשה, ושמות ביום השביעי מכל מלאכתו אשר עשה, ויברך אלוהים ביום השביעי ויקדש אותו, כי בו שבת מכל מלאכתו אשר ברא אלוהים לעשות. You can find Kiddush של יום שישי of Sabbath on page 122. and Sfirat HaOmer on page 570 if you are wondering tomorrow. Now that we know, Sabri חבריי וחברותיי, you can say לחיים.
לחיים.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם בורא פרי אגפם. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם אשר קידשנו במצוותיו ורצה בנו בשבת קודשו באבו ברצון הנחילנו זיכרון למעשה וראשית כי יום תחילה למקראי קודש זכר ליציאת מצרים כי באנו בחרת ואותנו קידשת עם כל העמים בשבת קודשך באהבה וברצון הנחלתנו. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. לחיים. We invite you now to, now that we are in person, to get closer to people you love. If you are fine with social distance, to the best of your ability. If your children are here with you, we invite you to call them next to you. If you are here with me, you don't have other parents here in town. So, and remain standing here with us. Make eye contact with your friends. Think of your children for one moment. I started with 3. I have 2 right now. So we say we take a moment. We take a moment to think about our creations. We take a moment to think about the creation of the world in Shabbat, and we recognize that we are partners in the creation. We are partners in the creation, sometimes with the children that we bring to the world, but also with the relationships that we create. When we create loving relationships with each other, when we decide to build communities, when we decide to be intentional about the world and we want to live in the lives that we want to create, we become partners in the creation. And we ask for our children and for those that we want to bless. We say, ישימכם אלוהים כאפרים וכמנשה, ישימך אלוהים כשרה רבקה, רחל ולאה. May God inspire you to be like the fathers and the mothers of Israel. And we say to all of them, יברככם אדוני באיש מרחם. May God bless you and protect you. יהיה אדוני פניו אליכם באיחונכם. May God's light shine upon you and may God be gracious to you. יישא אדוני פניו אליכם וישם לכם שלום. May you find within you God's presence always. And may you find within your hearts the ability to rediscover the world, to tell your story, to define who you are, to become a narrative of redemption, to connect with your aspirations, the ability to play, and to be whole with who you are, and to find shalom, which is God's most precious gift. וישם לכם, may God give to all of you shalom, peace. יברככם. And we say now, Adonai os le'amo iten, may God give to all of us the strength to be builders and creators of shalom. Adonai os le'amo iten, Adonai yevarech et amav bashalom. Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everyone. Mina me'etzad karatiya Hanani ve'merchavya Mina me'etzad karatiya Hanani ve'merchavya. In the most narrow place I call for God and I found the expansion of the divine presence. I want to say it once again. Mina metzal karatiya Anani ve'merchavya Ve'simradya Vayehi Lishua
הוציאנו, הוציאנו ממצרים, הוציאנו ממצרים, דיינו, 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 היי! אילו נתן לנו, נתן לנו את התורה, נתן לנו את התורה, דיינו, 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 דיינו,
Well, you stopped. I would have
That G minor was needed there to make it Broadway.
Okay.